Welcome to Redditamin, your daily dose of Reddit rants. Today's unpopular opinion is, woke people can be some of the most abusive people you'll ever meet. At least, this has been my experience. I think it's great when people take a stand for social issues, and I have no issues with being awake. However, this can go too far, and it allows for people to become abusive while thinking they are completely in the right. That's an incredibly dangerous thing. My ex was one of these people. She cared deeply about fixing social issues, and because of that she felt it was fine to steamroll everyone she knew and cared about because their discomfort was worth the change she was pushing. To an extent, I even agree with that. She was way too hypocritical though. Eventually she became dead to my feelings. If she hurt me, I did something to deserve it, or I was overreacting out of fragility and needed to get a grip. She was never willing to admit wrong, and my views were always tainted because I was a guy. I spent way too long in that relationship hating myself because I respected her efforts for change. It wasn't until I sought therapy that I realized how hurtful she was being. Eventually I came to the conclusion that believing the same things she did didn't give her a pass to treat people awfully. So yeah, sometimes the most outwardly caring and seemingly empathetic people can be the most abusive ones in your life. Edit, there's nothing wrong with caring about or trying to fix social issues. I hold values very similar to hers. This isn't targeting beliefs saying they are wrong, it's targeting bad actions done thinking they are justified with good beliefs. I'm not particularly religious, but I think that's why pride was the most sneaky of the 7 deadly sins. People get on their high horse and become super self-righteous, and it's nigh impossible to call them out because the intentions are good. Exactly this. It was so hard to make any headway with her because she genuinely felt she did no wrong. No amount of pleading or devil's advocating ever seemed to do much good. My problem is that it's virtually impossible to say or do anything without being called a racist or getting told how privileged I am to be able to do it, and I do all I can to stand up for many causes in my school and local community, but that doesn't seem to mean anything if I tell people I like the show Friends, for example. I get lectured on how it's homophobic and transphobic and I am wrong to watch it. I mean, FFS, it's a television program. It's a balance. I can recognize that I'm privileged and use that for positive means, but I know I can't satisfy everyone out there. It's really difficult because you have to learn to be confident in your own beliefs but also be willing to admit you're wrong if you're presented with evidence for it. Basically, it's all right to be woke, but there's so many people out there you can't be on everyone's side about everything. This is true of all political leanings online in general. Most people argue as a way to express anger. It's rare anyone is having an argument purely cause they like to have a better understanding of political philosophy, policy, social issues, etc. Online politics is toxic all around. Even then though, I doubt anyone even on his Facebook is calling him a racist for watching Friends. So the pride inherent in performing public virtue signals is 21st century sin. Now where did I put my stone tablet? Pride is also a destroyer of personal relationships, and I think it's one of the biggest reason why love isn't as in style anymore. A lot of people seem to have integrated the cancel culture mentality into their conceptions of personal relationships, which is damning because people, all of us, are inherently flawed. I see it in my peers all the time, a preoccupation with their own self and a very prideful unwillingness to forgive, to empathize, and to go, you know, I could have made that mistake if I was in your shoes, and I would want forgiveness if I was you. It takes putting pride aside to have this view of someone else getting yourself out of the way for their sake. The inability to forgive comes from pride, and it's a relationship killer. I don't know why we've reached a point where forgiveness is often perceived as weakness, but it's very lamentable, because it's nigh impossible to make long personal relationships work and last without a tremendous amount of forgiveness and empathy. Damn, I always thought it was the commodification of sex, but what you said makes sense. This is the flaw of individualism. It's all about me, my money, my future. Without a community we are nothing. You can sit on a pile of gold and starve because nobody is there to sell you food. Cancel culture is about calling people out for shiftiness. I don't always agree with the degree of cancellation, and it's not a universal thing, but it has led to people in my school district speaking up about assaults and harassment. They have the support to end abuse. If you are not a rapist, then a sincere apology, preferably before it all comes out, goes a long way. And I mean sincere. No, I'm sorry you got offended, or I was a victim too, that shit does not fly. And if you didn't do it, give a small statement. This incident did not occur. I am confused as to the source of the allegation. I hope that the alleged victim can get therapy for their trauma and find the perpetrator, if any. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Exactly, and good intentions doesn't mean people have good solutions. For example, step 1 is that we all agree B problem is bad. Many who claim to be woke will claim that their solution to the B problem is the only one, and if you don't agree with their solution then you must think that the B problem is good. It's a logical fallacy that I constantly see, and this goes into the real world, not just in social media. People forget that most bad guys arise out of good intentions with bad solutions. No, the solution is not to force everyone to agree with you, and anyone that doesn't is bad. That is how you start conflicts, not resolve them. It's like dealing with children sometimes. Yeah, you're right. When you meet genuinely peaceful and tolerant people, it oozes out of them. You can't fake something like that. I think the reason the woke movement gets so much resistance is that they're so transparently hypocritical. They'll be screaming insults at you, or trying to get you fired, for disagreeing while they maintain that they're tolerant in the same breath. It's weird. The really sad thing is, if these sort of people actually cared about change, they would study and implement the techniques that are proven to change people's minds. It's one thing I find so hypocritical about being woke. They yell at everyone to change but are unwilling to do what it takes to help people change. Instead they try and shame them and then cut them out. That makes people dig their heels in more. It's actively going against change. That is truly the worst thing about these people, they don't believe anyone can change. So how they expect us to solve racism I will never know. Through an imperialist attitude of conquering people by force and intimidation. It's why cancel culture exists, to force compliance by intimidation or force, attacking your livelihood in order to starve you out, kill you. But what does being woke mean to you? Genuine question. It's a left-wing version of being red-pilled. To be woke, you must believe all Western countries are imperialist and on par with the evils of Nazi Germany, white people have inherent sin based on slavery, Islam is a peaceful religion and all the violence done by Islamic sects for the thousands of years has been a bunch of one-offs, the only reason black people do poorly is because of white people being evil and other stuff like that. It is an incredibly bigoted and historically ignorant position that acts like a cult. They have an exclusively us versus them mentality. They have what's called a purity spiral in which you must always become more woke or else you will be labeled the them category, and they self-flagellate and supplicate themselves to their idols, white people becoming slaves for a black person for a day, white people kissing and washing the feet of black people. Woke people are just the Karens of politics. If you don't agree on something they'll ask for your manager and try to get you fired. Instead of arguing against the point you're making, they just try to hurt you. Most arguments based on emotion rather than logic, refusal to see a differing perspective, and often void of any factual information. This would be a great sudden clarity Clarence meme. Hey might be woke, but they are not awakened. They still sleep in the dream of their ego. They do not know themselves, let alone the others they try to help or try to stop. I recently got into a Twitter fight, my first mistake, but I was bored, with someone who claimed that the keto diet is ableist because it was appropriated from people with epilepsy. Some guy started arguing with me and I didn't like the way he spoke over me. So I said something like, you just love the metaphorical sound of your manly voice. Yes, immature, but nothing too awful. Immediately I was accused of being a TERF and a white supremacist. Someone made like 10 tweets about me attacking my appearance. All because I don't think you can appropriate a diet from someone if you aren't removing their ability to also eat the diet. Like, I'd say it's wrong to, for example, start a Japanese restaurant and put yourself forward as an expert on Japanese cuisine with no connection to the culture. But I'm sorry, but I think it's ridiculous to say you're appropriating or co-opting the fucking keto diet. If your response to people who disagree is, sit the fuck down, you are not woke. Being woke is supposed to mean that you can see the world as it is outside your small bubble of life experiences. However, most people claiming to be woke cannot actually do this. Instead they feel false guilt, empathy and compassion because these are the new currencies within this new social circle that gain them admission, and admission is really all they care about. People who would only have a small circle of friends have found it's really easy to feel part of something larger. All they have to do is agree and be assholes to those who disagree, even when that disagreement is not off by much. Their zero-tolerance approach is what makes them assholes. Truly woke people would not demand submission from others in order to create change. They would find ways to implement change to show it works and then use those successes to influence more change. The idea that you can have a revolution over ideals that demand people who disagree to be silent or face mob abuse and social pressure just makes things worse. Most woke people have become corporate and political pawns and do not even realize it. They are some of the most misguided and miserable people in their personal lives. They have no regard for other people's ideas or feelings and think that anyone who disagrees with them deserves something bad. Vigilantes aren't cool, they're jerks who push their ideas on others and think they are saving the world. My unpopular opinion is I hate that the term woke is used for social justice warriors now. Woke to me means something along the lines of enlightenment. Woke people in my eyes are people who think about the evolution of consciousness and the role of humanity in the universe. Spiritual things. Not saying social issues don't matter, but just because you have a sense of morality that most humans should have, does not make you woke. I laugh at woke people because most of them are all talk. Most of them will talk about the importance of helping people, but will turn a blind eye to the homeless who are critically in need of help. When the opportunity arises for someone who needs help, they'll be the first to bitch out. If a new immigrant family were to come to their country asking for a place to stay, the woke IEs would probably refuse. All talk, no action. Social justice warriors are abusive. No one should try to change other people. In my case, personally, I have battled identity fraud. It was my responsibility and my right to stand up for my rights, but also for my daughter's rights. Social justice warriors are preoccupied with changing things they don't even know about instead of working on themselves. Yes, no one should try to change other people. That's truly it in a nutshell. You can try to change laws or policies or conditions all you want. Fight hard. But you can only change one single human in this world, and that's yourself. You can influence others to change with your behavior, but negativity will never influence positive change. Every single group of people, no matter how righteous their cause, no matter how prestigious a group of people or whatever, every group will have extremists. People who take it way too far, or way too seriously, or are too blinded by their own belief system that they are incapable of seeing anything else or anyone else. Wanting to fix social issues doesn't make someone woke. I think a lot of people maybe consider themselves woke but aren't. I've found that the more I evolve, the more accepting I am that so many people don't even have a clue about what's really going on deep down, and I mean way deep down. Being ultimately woke means one has compassion and understanding for where other humans are on their journey. They don't feel the need to try to wake others up because they know they can't. Each individual has to come to that understanding and wake up on their own terms. Your GF doesn't sound like this is woke at all, maybe groggy with one eye open, but not truly woke. I also hate that term lol. They aren't woke, they're virtue signaling. Righteous anger is understandable in these times, but holy shit dude, I constantly second guess if my opinions on everything like napkins is racist or not because of woke folk screaming so much. I'm getting tired of how being socially conscious and woke has become a popular way to virtue signal. Just because you know of social problems doesn't mean you are woke. I'm glad people know of the myriad of problems lots of people face in society, and I really hope it leads to change, but seeing how many people use the oppression of others to look good on social media is disgusting. Only in the internet, if you were to meet them in person, I bet 89% of them will be fragile little things barely able to throw a punch. Unfortunately, many of these woke people lose credibility and respect as a result of how hostile they can be on certain issues. They'd have much more success if they had better temperament. Example, rioting versus protesting. Having the attitude of my way versus the highway results in people feeling alienated. It'd be way more effective to sit down with someone who doesn't agree and have a discussion and show them compassion. Woke behavior feels a lot like bullying and takes away from what it may be trying to accomplish. 100%, people who are so aggressively woke are a lot like the extremely regressive people they hate so much. My sister is uber progressive, feminist, the whole thing as am I, bleeding heart liberal here, but she's impossible to get along with and will go off on you if you say the wrong thing. My family doesn't like her despite other, much more loved relatives of mine actually having really asinine beliefs. Agreed, although my experiences have been slightly different to yours. My friends from uni are all very much woke, but they're happy to bash people they don't really like for no reason other than they don't like them. They gave people from our first-year student accommodation nasty nicknames, code names, and say nasty things behind their backs. Yes, the people they spoke about weren't great, but acting like this is still not kind at all, and happily say that they, themselves, were bitches and would be going to hell and didn't care. They'd be really horrible about politicians they disagreed with, and one of them said they'd be over the moon if Trump caught COVID and died. No, I don't like Trump, but that doesn't mean it's okay to wish disease and death on someone else like that, and take pleasure in it. That's exactly the meanness that people call out Trump for. But at the same time they'd support movements that called for the acceptance of and kindness towards other people, e.g. Pride, BLM, etc. To me this behavior is just so hypocritical, and completely against the values of the movements they support, and, yes, borderline abusive even though it's not to the faces of those they're talking about. Everyone is woke or taking red pills or whatever and the world spins on and doesn't give a fuck. Social media is how we got here and it's really getting old.